Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Troubling Tribune. I'm your host, Skylar Moody, and today we have a very exciting episode for you. We celebrate Moon Day. I share my personal spiritual experience, and we go over a couple fantastic links and the Polk's response to the latest scandal. Anyway, let's go ahead and get right into it. In honor of Moon Day, I'd like to go ahead and introduce this throwback. Many of you are probably already aware of a channel called Awaken with JP. But he actually did a video a while back in his younger days, I'll say. And it was just really, really good. Back when I first watched it, I can honestly say I was too stupid to understand just how genius it was. But in honor of Moon Day, I'd like to go ahead and share 13 reasons why the moon landing was fake from Ultra Spiritual with JP. Let's get right into it.
There were 6 alleged moon landings between 1969 and 1972, and there's been 0 moon landings since. Seems a little suspicious, doesn't it? Well, that's because we never went to the moon. Let me prove it to you with 13 reasons why the moon landing was fake. Why would America fake the moon landing? Well, at the time, the US was in the heat of the Cold War with the Soviet Union, and the space race was important because of the fear that the Soviet Union might weaponize space by putting missile launch sites on the moon, leaving the US defenseless. Now, the US had already been beaten by the Soviet Union in putting the first person into space. They asserted their dominance over us like the dog whisperer putting a hostile rescue dog from Tijuana in its place. But if we could be the first to the moon, then we'd be the new alpha dog in the world. But in this case, what creates the alpha dog isn't the size of the fight in the dog. It's the size of the lie in the dog that's in the fight. Thus, the US became the new alpha dog when we were the first nation to fake the moon landing. The US government also faked the moon landing to distract the public from the Vietnam War, which wasn't very popular. It's like if I'm doing something you disapprove of and I can distract you from it, then you don't notice your disapproval of the thing I'm still doing. Look over there, a moon landing. Now let's look at some hard evidence. The flag waving in the wind. Now take a look at the astronauts proudly planting the American flag on the moon as it gracefully waves in the wind. There's just one problem with this. There's no wind on the moon, Einstein. Evidence of a hoax. No dust kicked up on the lunar landing. Take a close look at the lunar module. You'll see there's no dust on the footpads, and it didn't leave a blast crater either. This would be approximately like diving into a swimming pool in your car and not making a splash. Guess what? The moon's surface is covered in dust. It's not like landing in a Walmart parking lot covered in pavement, so it would be impossible to land on the moon's surface without kicking up a dust storm. No stars in any photos. There are no stars in any photos taken from the moon. Now, were the stars just blotched out by the intense inner city streetlights that are on the moon? Or are there just no stars visible from the pretend moon inside of a Hollywood soundstage? I don't know. I'm just asking questions here. Pictures have the same background. Look at these 2 photos. 2 different locations on the moon, but each have the exact same background. Looks like the set designers got a little lazy and decided they'd go with the same background for 2 different fake locations. The crosshairs. Crosshairs were etched into the lens of the camera the astronauts were using, yet in a number of photos, an object allegedly on the moon appears in front of the crosshairs. This is foul play. The only way an object could appear in front of the crosshairs is if the object were superimposed on the photo. Fake photos trying to fake a real moon landing. Competing shadows. There's one source of light on the moon. It's called the sun. Yet some photos have shadows going at 2 different angles, suggesting multiple light sources, which suggests studio lighting, which suggests not moonlighting. Not to mention photos where the astronauts are backlit by the sun, yet you can still see the detail on front of the astronauts. Hashtag studio lighting. Now, even getting to the moon alive would be impossible because of the Van Halen radiation belt. The Van Allen radiation belt. No one could survive the trip through this intense radiation belt that surrounds the Earth. Can a cat survive being put in a microwave? No, which proves astronauts can't survive being put through the Van Allen radiation belt. Buzz Aldrin doing his best Mike Tyson. Now, in 2002, Buzz Aldrin punched a reporter who was denying the moon landing ever happened. Quite the reaction. Seems like old Buzz was feeling a little insecure about something, wasn't he? Now, how did the US fake the moon landing? I've got 2 words for you. Stanley Kubrick. He was hired by the government to direct and film the fake moon landing inside a Hollywood soundstage. And he could never tell the truth because if he did, they would kill him, and he knew it. That's why in his 1980 movie, The Shining, he revealed the truth through a trail of secret messages. First, take a look at the kid Danny, who obviously represents Stanley Kubrick himself in the film. He's wearing an Apollo 11 sweater, which tells you Kubrick was Apollo 11. Next, take a look at the scene involving room 237. Room 237 obviously represents the moon because it's approximately 237,000 miles from the Earth. And take a look at the room key. It says room no 237, which means no moon. Plus, if you take the N from the word no, use it to replace the R in the word room, then flip the word backwards, you've got the word moon. And then after Danny enters the forbidden room 237, which represents the moon landing that took place behind closed doors, his sweater is tattered and he has marks on his throat, and he won't tell his mother what happened. This represents NASA's stranglehold on Kubrick to keep silent about the moon landing hoax. The cases of Tang by Jack's head in the storage closet correlate to Tang being on the Apollo missions and how the truth is supposed to be kept in the closet. We could also then reason to believe that the psychotic break of Jack Nicholson's character is Kubrick's portrayal of what the pressure was like of keeping such a huge secret for so long. And some would even say that the whole movie was Kubrick's way of apologizing for being a part of the biggest lie in human history. Stanley Kubrick's whole intent of The Shining was quite poetic in nature. Let the truth live beyond him. And indeed it did. Kubrick allegedly died in 1999 of a heart attack. Yeah, not very likely. It's more probable the government finally got their eyes wide open to how Kubrick spilled the truth about the moon landing 19 years earlier in The Shining, and then decided to execute the do not talk clause in their contract, if you know what I mean. So NASA, we haven't been back to the moon for nearly 50 years. Why is that? And NASA's like, in the past 50 years, technology's actually gotten worse. Yeah, the experts say human knowledge is doubling.
Not a very good excuse.
Months. And yeah, your smartphone has more computing power than all of NASA's computers combined in 1969. But aside from all that, technology is actually getting worse, making it impossible to go back to the moon. Yeah. So that's pretty much our airtight reason for why we haven't been back to the moon for 50 years. And all follow-up questions will be answered with the term budget cuts. You know what, NASA? I don't buy into your Cold War winning, deceiving the American people propaganda. Moon landing? Fake. Oh, and by the way, the Earth is flat. If you want to watch my video proving how that's absolutely true, click here. #flat.
My goodness, JP, we can't have any of that. He's obviously lost his mind off his rocker. Doesn't know his butt from a hole in the ground. Obviously, we are a spinny, magical flying ball in space, and we definitely went to the moon. Just kidding. In all seriousness, though, that is a great litmus test for folks. If you can't see that there was some funny business with the moon landings, then we probably shouldn't have a conversation about other conspiracies. But anyway, happy Moon Day, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations to NASA for pulling off one of the best hoaxes, if not the best hoax in human history. For those of you who are iffy on that, there are just a few channels I'd like to go ahead and shout out for technical stuff. If you're a real technical kind of person, I recommend you go over and check out Don't Sphere the Truth and Flat Earth Debate, also known as Nathan Oakley 1980. Those two channels can really take you through a crash course on some flat Earth physics. So I'd like to go ahead and introduce, once again, for this show, our sponsor, Truth Smacks. When you have the truth and you need to smack people with it, make sure you go and grab yourself a bag of Truth Smacks. You can go over to truthsmacks.com and go to their resources page while you're there to find all sorts of really, really great stuff. You can use the promotion code SKY to get 10% off your total order. It's all organic, so you won't be disappointed. Very delicious stuff. My family has taken a huge liking to them. I can't get my son to eat them. He's very picky, but everybody else is having a great time with it. Okay, let's go ahead and move right along. Many of you probably remember the previous show that we did where we overviewed a scandal that was happening in the Polk County school system over here in Florida. Currently, there is a superintendent, Mr. Hyde. It's funny, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Mr. Hyde and Lindsay Sharp both came over from the Chicago, Illinois District 300, Kane County. And they were both, their county, I should say, is being investigated for, the school in that county is being investigated for the mishiring practices of Carlos Bedoya, who got convicted of I believe it was 8 different accounts of child sexual abuse. So terrible stuff there. Even though that was under investigation, they still managed to get themselves a job over here. So now, since that story has come out, Polk County has actually come and did a response, which is fantastic. We take the one side of the story. So I'd like to go ahead and bring that up right now for you all. In the spirit of fairness, in the spirit of openness, it's always good to have both sides of the story. So, sorry, I'm taking just a minute here. I'm still working on getting better at this, so bear with me. Here we go. All right, here it is. This is from the actual polkschoolsofflorida.com. So this is, what would you call it? Prime material, source A. This is right from the sources, right from the horse's mouth. PCPS responds to the reports about the district employee. Let's go ahead and read on. On Friday, July 8th, a blog post and podcast were published regarding the Polk County School Board's hiring of Frederick Hyde as a superintendent. These online stories have been circulating on social media, and news media have asked PCPS for comment. I bet they have. In the interest of transparency, we are sharing the following response with our community. To provide some context, got to provide context, of course. The post was created by blogger David Gornowski, who subsequently featured James Dunn on the podcast. James Dunn is a campaign consultant for two local school board candidates. He has been featured by the Lakeland Ledger previously regarding his having been convicted on federal fraud charges. Well, that's not ever good, being convicted on federal fraud charges. So, of course, always take everything with a grain of salt, but let's just remember that this is not Dunn's story. This story actually comes from Illinois, and it was just being reported by a neighbor's choice. So let's go ahead and read on. Specifically, the story and podcast allege that Polk County School Board failed to perform a comprehensive background check on Mr. Hyde before hiring him as a superintendent. And secondly, the story and podcast allege that Lindsay Sharp was hired improperly by Mr. Hyde and that she fails to meet eligibility requirements for the role of PCPS Senior Director of Digital Learning and Innovation. Okay, so they're going right to the allegations. That's good, right to the meat of the matter. I don't want them to try to pigeonhole it, and it does seem like they might be leaning towards that direction. Of course, if they were just under investigation, that might not necessarily come up in the background check if the lawsuits haven't been settled and all that good stuff. But anyway, let's go ahead and read on. Allegation. Let's start with allegation number 1, where the Polk County School Board failed to conduct a proper background check on Mr. Hyde as a candidate. So yeah, they're definitely pigeonholing it. It's not that you didn't conduct a proper background check. It's that you didn't see, I guess it would be if it didn't come up, but even if it wouldn't come up, you should have at least, if you knew about the allegations, you should have still not hired, at least not yet. But let's go ahead and read on. PCPS refutes this baseless allegation in its entirety. School board went above and beyond the norm when hiring Mr. Hyde. The board enlisted the services of the Florida School Board Association and the Polk County Sheriff's Office to assist with the background checks on all PCPS superintendent candidate finalists. These background checks included searches of bankruptcies, liens, judgment, UCC filings, phones, emails, etc. All that good stuff. Polk County Sheriff's Office also sent the team and investigators to conduct a, quote, boots on the ground, detailed background check on each candidate. All right, so at this point, I'm almost certain to say that there's no way they couldn't have known about the allegations going on in their previous district. So I'd love to see what they've uncovered here. Neither report revealed anything of concern Oh, well, I guess that's it, folks. Nothing to see here. They did their background check, and there was nothing to be concerned about. So, parents, go ahead and put your head back in the sand. Nothing to see here. Now, let's go ahead and keep on going. In addition, Mr. Hyde was never a named party in the litigation referenced in the Post and podcast that was filed in Illinois, where he previously served as superintendent. Now, you don't have to be necessarily named to be under investigation. Your county was under investigation. You're the superintendent of the schools, and this whole incident was being investigated. So, I mean, if there wasn't a lawsuit on the hiring practices, I could see that if that was fabricated. In which case, I'd apologize up front for serving up fake news. But I'm just going based on what I can find. And so far, I am finding that there is stuff to be concerned about. But let's read on. Sheriff Grady Judd has also provided a statement to the chair of the school board, Sarah Beth Wyatt, supporting Mr. Hyde. Okay, so this letter comes from Mr. Grady Judd himself. Grady Judd is a popular sheriff here in Florida. Very conservative. He likes people to have their guns and whatnot. So he definitely has some benefits. And he's also really heavy on sex crimes, which is always good. We don't need deviants running around. So, dear Chair Wyatt, it has come to my attention that criticism has been made against the Polk School Board's background process related to the hiring of Superintendent Fred Hyde. The Polk County Sheriff's Office did a complete and thorough background investigation for the Polk County School Board related to Mr. Hyde, and I can assure you that he was fully vetted by our background investigation. Okay. His name would not have been presented to the school board if there was any valid question related to his qualifications, integrity, or his care and concern for the safety and educational needs and well-being of the children under his care. Wow, he really likes to do a run-on sentence there. Okay, so they're saying it's perfectly on the up and up. He's a great dude. It's absolutely nothing to be concerned about. Our background okay, here's the good stuff. Our background investigation was well aware of the legal filings involving District 300 schools in Kane County, Illinois. There is absolutely no indication of any connection of Mr. Hyde to any poor decision making related to the hiring or negligent retention of any employee. Mr. Hyde was never a named party in the filing we reviewed, and there was not then, and there is not now, any iota of evidence implicating him in any unlawful or unprofessional behavior. Okay. What about Mrs. Sharp, who was the principal of the school directly? There's still that question. I can see how you might have let that slip through the cracks. I said it when I first covered the article. You could have made the case that, we just didn't know that was happening. Hyde could have made that case. He is the superintendent. He oversees all the schools in that area. But Mrs. Sharp is a different scenario. But let's continue to read on. Maybe they'll mention her. I have worked with Superintendent Hyde since his hiring, and I find him to be a man of integrity with extraordinarily strong work ethic and professional commitment, blah, 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 blah. Any allegation that he is anything less than highly principled and a capable leader has been shown to be without merit by our background investigation. So here's the question that I would ask, for sure, is that if the background investigation did include the investigation of the previous schools that were having the issues with Mr. Carlos Bedoya, then I would say I would definitely put the highly principled and capable leader, at least the capable leader part, into question. To say there's nothing of concern is ridiculous. Let's move on. Allegation: Mrs. Sharp was improperly hired by Mr. Hyde and does not meet the eligibility requirements. I never said she. Well, they're claiming the article did. I don't know. I didn't read the full 100% article. Once it started getting opinion-based, I kind of left it up to the readers to finish that off. I'm very busy. But if I missed something and then whatever. It's all good. But let's go ahead and read on. PCPS reviewed the allegation that found that Mr. Hyde had no involvement in the hiring of Mr. Sharp. Mr. Hyde did not participate in the selecting of candidates for interviews, the interview process, or choosing the final candidate. I find that hard to believe, being as he's a superintendent, but again, that's my opinion. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know the ins and outs of how all this stuff works. Mr. Hyde was also not listed as a reference, nor was he asked to provide a reference to Mrs. Sharp. Finally, Mrs. Sharp met or exceeded all the qualifications for the position. Additionally, a full background check was performed in accordance with the statute school code. The background check revealed nothing that would preclude her as a candidate. Okay, so if you were, folks, keep that in mind, if you were a principal of a school that retained an employee that was sexually abusing children, you needn't fear. That does not preclude you as a candidate for working in other school districts. So keep that in mind. You can continue to fail your way upwards. This blog post and podcast appear to be politically motivated and completely lacking in any kind of journalistic integrity. Neither Mr. Hyde nor the PCPS were ever contacted regarding these allegations or asked for a response. You were asked in the media. This appears to be a blatant, misleading attempt to influence the upcoming elections. Well, I can't deny that it's definitely an attempt to influence the direction of the elections. I'm not sure if a lot of parents would agree with Mr. Grady Judd and the school board's decision that there's nothing to be concerned about with Mr. Hyde and Mrs. Sharp. There are many issues with the post and podcast, including no attempt to verify the specifics of the lawsuit, James Dunn's participation in the podcast. So just this person participating simply means that they shouldn't trust it, as he's a paid campaign involvement. Like, you guys aren't paid. PCPS and Mr. Hyde have always been open to responding to media and community requests. So there you go. If you want to go ahead and reach out, send out your letters to the superintendent or to the school board of Polk County, feel free to fire away. They've done a background check and they feel like there's absolutely nothing to be concerned about whatsoever. I'm not exactly sure how they came to that conclusion. If it had anything to do with the hiring practices at all, Mr. Bedoya, I mean, you guys saw the allegations if you saw the previous video. I mean, they actually sent out a notice to him after he had been arrested saying that they are still going to keep him as a substitute, which is just, that alone should put you up on the chopping block. But again, I don't run the school systems. What do I know? Don't listen to me. Do your own research. I do want to go ahead and bring up this other interesting article here, because again, the only way that that whole situation would make sense is if they actually weren't under investigation for the hiring practices and all that. So let's go ahead and pull this up here. I couldn't actually find the lawsuit, which was unfortunate. It was very unfortunate. I wanted to see if I could verify the specifics for myself, but they seem to have buried it on the Google. But what I could find was an article from a place called cookcountyrecord.com/stories. And let's go ahead and get this up here. Share the screen for you and me. Okay, Cook County Record. This picture of a judge here. All right, so since I couldn't find the actual lawsuit, I just want to see if I could verify any details of the lawsuit at all. And I did stumble across this article here by Scott Holland. This was November 15th, 2021. And let's go ahead and just read it here. A state appeals panel has ruled that an insurer cannot skirt its obligation to fund the legal defense of a Northwest suburban school district facing a lawsuit regarding its alleged failure to prevent the molestation of minors during after-school programs operated on district property by the Boys and Girls Club. Okay. At the issue is the plight of the community school district 300. Right, so this is the correct, we're in the correct place, folks. Based in Awaken, which operates 31 elementaries, middle, and high schools in Kane and McHenry counties. District 300 rented space to the Boys and Girls Club of West Dundee Township. Both entities had employed Carlos Alberto Bedoya, there's our man right there, who is accused and now convicted of molesting and abusing unnamed minor students. West Bend Mutual Insurance Company had asked Kane County Circuit Judge Kevin Bush to issue a declaratory judgment that it had no duty to defend District 300 in lawsuits accused it of errors in its hiring, here it is, hiring, retention, and supervisory policies that allowed the abuse to persist. I mean, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I know it's not directly right here in front of your face, but it should be pretty easy to infer. If you have the insurance company asking the judge to make it so that they don't have to cover the lawsuit in hiring, retention, and supervisory policies that allowed the abuse to persist, then that means that District 300 is currently facing a lawsuit in its hiring, retention, and supervisory policies. And being as Mr. Hyde and Mr. Hyde definitely has something to do with those policies, and Mrs. Sharp was the actual principal of the school that it was happening in, I just don't see any way that they could say that the school board at Polk County and that Sheriff Grady Judd, who's so hard on sex crimes, could then say that there's nothing to be concerned about. I'd like to actually see what they found, since they seem to have been able to find the actual lawsuits and know for a fact that these people weren't named. If they could go ahead and put a source for that so that we could scrutinize it, that would be fantastic. If somebody else could find it in the meantime, I'd love to go over it as well and bring more up-to-date information here. So Bush instead granted the District 300's motion for summary judgment in the case, prompted West Bend's appeal. Okay, so the judge says that they have to pay it. They're going to have to cover the lawsuit. And that's really all that you need to know about that. There is a lawsuit involving those hiring practices. And now we have those same people in our school system over here. So if you want to go ahead and see what's up with that and possibly even drain the swamp, then be sure to go ahead and check that out. I left a link to the article down below. And there you have it. So there goes the nitty gritty, really the tough stuff that is to cover when it comes to this show. I don't like to cover the stuff that's hard to talk about. I have 2 children myself, so anything that comes with, trying to make a better environment, and we're seeing that there's these corrupt individuals in line that are trying to make things worse for everybody. It's definitely a concern to me. So I like to go ahead and raise the alarm on stuff like that. But anyway, I'd like to go ahead and change gears quite a bit. We're going to go ahead and get right into a topic that's going to be coming up here soon. For those of you who aren't familiar of the Jeranism show, that is a popular conspiracy and opinion talk show / podcast, whatever you want to call it. I'm not super privy on the terms, but it's a good little show. And today they are actually going to be covering remote viewing, which, for those of you who don't know, remote viewing and astral projection are pretty much one and the same. Basically, there's the known ability, according to a lot of individuals, that you can leave your body when you go to sleep, and you can even pull information from that. So I brought this topic up on the Jeranism Speakers Corner previously, and since sparking that conversation, there has been a group. Orphan Red is I believe, a YouTuber. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But she does remote viewing and is in a group that is skilled in that, supposedly. And they have reached out to Jaren for an experiment. So go over to the Jeranism channel and check that out. They're going to be doing, hopefully, the results here pretty soon. And you can see, hopefully, a real-world example on if something like that is possible. Now, as for me, I know that stuff like that is possible. I do think it's one of those things that everybody has to prove for themselves. But I do have my own personal experience that I'd like to share for any of those who are interested. If not, feel free to skip along. Maybe this part of the show is not for you, but for those of you who it is, I think that this has a lot of enlightening information. At least it did for me. In any case, I'll go ahead and give you a little bit of background. I've been studying astral projection and lucid dreaming for 7 or 8 years now, off and on. I haven't gone super gung-ho, head over heels to the part to where I could call myself a full master of the craft, but I have been able to successfully meditate. I have been able to visualize places in my head and control things in my dreams, which is very, very fun. That's actually a little bit more common than I thought. When you get to looking into that, you'll see there's lots of people out there with stories where they can control their own dreams. And if you can do that, I mean, you're living 2 lives. You got your day life, and then you go to sleep, and then you got a whole bunch of other fun stuff that you can do, and you don't get tired, and you get to learn a whole bunch of stuff about the world and about yourself. But there is another part to that, which is the astral projection. And that's where you get skilled enough to where you can actually project your body into the real known spaces I guess you'd call it, of the physical realm that we inhabit. And so here's my little story. Whether you want to believe me or not, of course, it's also up to you. I really don't care who believes me. This is just food for thought, adding to the preponderance of evidence. And I do recommend that everybody at least attempt to do this kind of stuff. It's not something that happens overnight, but it is something that you can definitely do, I believe. So, anyway, what happened? I am at my parents' house. Just hanging out. I actually had a room at the time. I wasn't in the best place in my life. But anyway, I digress. My girlfriend at the time was off at her friend's house across the state over in Tampa. And I had just taken a little puffy puff, if you know what I mean. And I know as soon as I say stuff like that, people are going to raise the red flags. I was like, oh, how can you know that it's real if you did it on drugs? Drugs or no drugs, the story validates itself if you're the one who is participating in the story. And again, this was just proof for me. I'm not going to claim that this one is 100% proof for anybody else, but it's just something to look at. So I had went inside. I had been thinking about my life. I had had some time. I'm one of those people that, once you get to smoking, you get to thinking about your life and thinking about the way things are going. And I realized that things were actually going in a pretty positive direction. I had dealt with bouts of anxiety a couple years prior. When I had tried to astral project and lucid dream prior, I actually ran into some pretty scary stuff. That scared the hell out of me, scared me back into Christianity. I've actually double backed into that religion twice. I wouldn't call myself a Christian at this day and age, but there was definitely a back and forth that I went through in my mind when I was a little bit less intelligent. But anyway, so I run into these things. I get scared the bejeebus out of. I go through anxiety attacks for a good year, actually. 3 months of it being really, really intense. Then it kind of died down, and then they would just come back periodically. But I went a couple years since having some anxiety attacks. I had made some mental breakthroughs, not to get too much into it. And I was just in a really positive place. I decided there was nothing really for me to fear in this life for one reason or another. And while I was sitting on the bed, I decided to lay back. And that's when it hit me. I just felt a whole bunch of vibration, whole bunch of energy, if you will. It's really hard to describe it, but if you ever felt your like arm or leg go to sleep, imagine that, but over your entire body and especially over your head. When it goes over your eyes and cheeks, it's really, really crazy feeling. But this feeling sinks in, and before I know it, I have rocketed forward, and I am now standing in front of my bed. Now, because of the research that I did, I kind of knew what was going on. I knew that I didn't want to look behind me. I didn't want to look at my body because anywhere that you look and think about is where you're going to go. And I had just managed to get out. So I basically had this dream where I wandered disembodied into the kitchen, and I tried to like move cabinets and stuff, and I was just phasing through everything. It was difficult. And this is my kitchen. This is definitely my parents' kitchen. So I'm in the middle of doing this, and my mom comes out, and it's obvious that she can't see me. She walks literally right by me, reaches into the cabinet, opens it up, gets herself a glass, gets herself a tray, and gets herself some crackers and some water. It's a pretty boring but common snack in my parents' household. So anyway, I see her retreat back into her room. I go about my business trying to figure out what the heck I can actually do in this state of body, and then I wake up to my phone ringing. It's actually, excuse me, it's actually my girlfriend Jessica calling me to let her know that she's about to start heading back towards my way. And I had forgotten everything that had just happened for the moment. I was caught up in the conversation, as one often does with a dream. And then it hit me right before we hung up. I said, hold on, babe, you got to hold the phone. I just had a crazy dream that I just wandered into the kitchen and I saw my mom get crackers and water. Would you mind holding the phone? I just got to see if there was any validity to this. She knows that I've been on this before. So she was respectful and decided to hang on to the phone and see what happened. So I put her on speaker and I marched into my mother's, knocked on the door. She told me to come in. I went ahead and went in, and I knew the answer before I even asked her the question, but I asked for the phone call, of course. Um, there on her nightstand was a half-eaten thing of crackers and an almost empty glass of water. And I asked her, Mom, did you get crackers and water recently? And she said, yeah, why? And I said, about how long ago did you do that? And she said, about 20 minutes ago. And I was like, I'll be damned. So, yeah, that's just one of those crazy little stories. I had never been able to do it again since. I've wanted to dedicate some time to be able to do that. But with everything that's been going on, there's just so much ways that you can split your energy. And it's hard to decide what's important. But I do think that that's something that's really important. And if Jeranism has actually found a group of people who are really skilled that are taking on people, I might just join up with that and start making some content about that to help others be able to do the same thing, because I do believe that that is the ticket to the afterlife. I don't believe in any of the mainstream religions. I believe in raw mechanics. And the fact is that if you can leave your body, that's your soul. And if you can maintain your consciousness through that, then there's absolutely no reason that you have to forfeit that. And you might even be able to reincarnate with that. There are reports of indigo children and stuff, people who apparently reincarnate with their consciousness. So there might be hope yet for the ticket of immortality. I wouldn't consider myself, I guess I wouldn't consider myself a hardcore dark Satanist as you guys would know it. I actually hesitate to use that term because of the etymology of the words, but I definitely think that there is a lot of truth in the occultic information. Whether you want to accept it or not, there's definitely reasons why the most powerful people want to practice that. And then they put forth religions that tell us to not practice that. If you're a Republican or a conservative or even a libertarian, you probably could already see the argument if you believe in this stuff at all, because I mean, it's the gun argument. This stuff is very powerful stuff and they don't want us to use it. So they tell us, hey, guns are really powerful. You shouldn't use that because people can use that for bad things. It's like, yeah, you definitely, I'm sure, could use this for bad things, but that doesn't mean that you will. So I recommend responsible usage, especially for those who are actively practicing. So that about covers that little spiel. I should have warned you beforehand. It is heavily opinionated, of course. When it comes to the spiritual stuff, it's really hard to give absolute facts, but I will say that the things that I do talk about, I do try to get as close to the raw mechanics as I can. With that being said, I do want to go ahead and move on to the final part of the show. For those of you who don't know, we do have a TikTok, the Troubling_Tribune. And at that TikTok, we follow some pretty interesting people, and it's actually a lot less censored, it seems, than YouTube. So let me go ahead and get this going. I try to keep this stuff one at a time so my computer don't crash, but that's neither here nor there. Let's go ahead. All right. Actually, what am I doing? Sorry, guys. Going about that the whole wrong way. I actually had screen recorded. That way it'd be a little bit easier for us to use. So just give me 1 second here to get this up. And this should be some pretty cool stuff that we got here. So we got our, my goodness, just wants to take for absolute ever. It's a really, really great stream when you can, when you get to this point and then you can't find the stuff that you were going to show. My goodness. Okay. Captures. Nope. That folder's empty. Excellent. Oh my goodness. It's so excellent. Such a great stream. Okay. So we are going to have to do it the old-fashioned way because I cannot find the stuff that I had previously saved for you guys. So if you're not watching this live, I advise you just skip ahead the next minute. Super professional, I know. Okay, you know what? It's not even a big deal because it's actually great right away. I rarely come onto the TikTok and not find at least some interesting stuff. I'm not going to vouch for the truthfulness of it all. I always recommend, again, you do your own research. But if you don't know what you're looking for, it's really hard to do that. So let's go ahead and share some of the best of my TikTok. You're welcome, YouTube. Here we go.
It is from the Iron Ages, y'all. There are so many Solomonic symbols in here. Look at this book, y'all. It is absolutely beautiful. Look at the case. I wouldn't be surprised if that was real gold or something on their bronze. Look at that. Y'all, look at this book. Look what's in it. Y'all, that's a Hindu symbol. Wait, the scarab beetle. Look, y'all. OMG,
Oh, yeah.
look, the doves. There's some stuff in here that's going to surprise y'all, though, for real. Look, it's a whole bunch of Solomonic symbols in here, though.
Well, they said that Solomon controlled demons with his runes. So, with his rings that had rune symbols on them.
Solomon symbols.
Well, that was actually a rune wheel. That's the Eye of Ra.
What? The Eye of Ra.
Yeah.
I wish I could interpret this book.
Yeah. So for those of you Christians who are like, oh, the Bible is the oldest thing, and it's like, well, the people, if it's the Book of David, I don't even know how legit that is, but that's probably a Masonic book. Fun stuff. Let's go ahead and move on.
So this man right here is the co-founder of the South African Satanic Church, and he just resigned. You can look up his testimony on YouTube, but this is how he got saved. He was conducting an interview on a radio station, and in the interview he said, "I do not believe that Jesus Christ exists." After the interview, a woman from the radio team came up to him and hugged him in a way he said he had never been hugged before. A week later, he saw her on the WhatsApp. I'm not really know what that is. I'm not familiar with it, but he saw her on that app.
That poor guy was probably not really big into his beliefs. We got a lot of weak people like that. I'm not saying it's good to be like that. It's like, oh, we got to beat extremists in our beliefs. But I am saying that to somebody to just be converted because of a simple hug that they received, I mean, he probably was just anti-culture. Let's just be real. Most people who are Satanists that I've met are just anti-culture. So let's move on here.
Have you ever looked at the moon and questioned what it actually is? Bro, the science behind this thing will change the way you see it forever. Okay, let's start with, according to the laws of physics, the moon shouldn't even be here. Against all natural laws, only one side of the moon faces us at all times, which is a result of tidal lock, not normal. Its perfect geometric shape causes eclipses on Earth, and I mean perfect geometric shape. This is not normal, like 1,000,000 in 1 chance. Astronauts discovered processed metals like brass and titanium on the moon's surface, which are not naturally occurring metals.
So he's going with the moon is a fake satellite thing. I think it's all bullshit.
Sage, and that is 92 3D 101 in the Second Circuit in 1996. The issue: the Child Support Recovery Act is invalid because it goes beyond the constitutional power of Congress to enact. That was the issue. The result of this Supreme Court case, it says the child support agreements are equivalent to interstate commercial contracts and rejects the idea that child support payment obligation are somehow different. They're no different than student loans or a car note. So basically, the child support program is nothing more than an interstate contract. So here's the importance. States that have
You can barely hear that.
Earth shine.
That's great though.
This is how
Contract
modern
law.
science
Learn
has
it.
fooled you.
They said that Earth shine is the absolute proof that the moon eclipsed the sun during the solar eclipse. In fact, it's just an edited image using a simple overlay and opacity features. Believe me, you won't be able to see the moon approaches the sun during the solar eclipse.
Yeah. What is that being eclipsed right there? Somebody tell me. Because right above that is the moon. Right here.
There you have
That's
it.
the moon right there. So it ain't the moon being eclipsed.
So how do eclipses work, Globers?
Something out in the sky
There you have it.
being eclipsed that is here. Everything is here right now. And y'all can keep playing. I know you Christians are listening to me. Idolatry will get you sent to hell.
Earth shine.
What the heck?
I'm gonna tell you something the elite class don't want you to know, but I'm gonna tell you anyways.
They can't separate the Christianity and the flat earth truth, man. They think that God has to be the God of the Bible because that's the religion that they've been presented with. But if you were in India, you know, and you saw that, you would simply be that's proof. Oh man, I'm starting a brain fart. It's been a long show. That's proof of the Shiva. That's proof of the divine. It's simply whatever culture you were in. Be bigger minded than that and understand that all the religions were probably made to control you in one aspect or another.
It just breaks down the plans they got. When you study mental science, that's the spirit's effect on the mind and the mind's effect on physical matter. You realize that the entire universe moves by thought alone, not accompanied by another power, but alone. When you realize that, you start to think thought is the same quality no matter where it is. Doesn't matter if I think or you think. So what's going on here? We are us, but thought is thought and spirit is spirit, unified. There is no difference between powers. So the person who can think the most highest vibratory thought, that thought has power of its own to swallow up any negative and evil and replace it, because the universe is set up for growth and expansion, not contraction. So as soon as a collective group of people starts to think in the best way possible and feel in the best way possible and start to take those actions by law to create what they can feel themselves living in inside, it will swallow up the current world that we do not like.
Right.
And it will be replaced by the beautiful heaven on earth we all want. Love y'all.
Can't disagree with that.
Let me start right off by saying that I believe that Ukraine has lost the war. Of course, the war is not over, but it is lost. Let me show you why. This has become an artillery duel. Russia fires 50,000 shells a day, 10 times.
War theater.
For anyone that thinks that the Bible is just a bunch of stories and fairy tales, please watch this and consider.
Let's
I am
consider
going
it.
to show you actual footage of the ruins of what used to be Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom's sin was
Breadcrumbs
pride,
doesn't
just
mean
as
the Bible's
ours
real.
is also. Here in this day and age, we are far worse than Sodom and Gomorrah ever were. The wrath of God fell on the entire city, and there were no survivors.
They have nothing.
Sodom.
But
all right, some people have never heard of the Bible Code,
rocks.
So I'm just going to let you know what the Bible Code is. They say it was given to us at the beginning of the Bible when God created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and on the 7th day he rested. And then you just go back down from there. This was discovered by Marty Leeds in numerology.
Oh, so, numerology. Here we go.
You just put the numbers in with words and do the numbers out. Jesus equals 27. Light equals 27. Yeshua equals 27. Source equals 27. And as you can see, all these different words add up to the same numbers, and they sort of correlate together. And then you have tree, which is 7555, evil 5552, Eve 555.
Not important.
Across
in my
the
opinion.
ice walls in the ancestral republic.
Okay.
It was a clear, dark night, and the waters were still. Beautiful lights illuminated on the horizon. The men were in awe. Captain Butler couldn't help but notice their fascination as they approached the ancestral republic. They decided that they'd vacate the unknown waters immediately, per the warning they got just a few days prior. The crew arrived at the port of this modern city, waiting to be received as guests. They couldn't help but notice the serene silence and peace that the city emanated, even though all were awake and it was bustling. They stood there for just a couple minutes when several agents dressed in the same uniforms the men that warned them were wearing approached. "Welcome to the Ancestral Republic," one of them said as he shook hands with Captain Butler. "We're glad to have you here. To be honest, we didn't think that they were telling the truth when they told us of your visit. The fact that you are here is seemingly impossible, but not impossible. It's been many, many years, but we've had visitors of the like before." Butler introduced the crew, and William Morris is the owner of the boat. They were jostling with excitement. "Thank you. It's an honor to come to these unknown lands," said Captain Morris. But before he could continue on, the men said, "Here, we need to take you to the Republic President. He wanted me to accompany you and Mr. Butler to see him, as your visit is unprecedented." A vehicle pulled up that they had never seen before,
Cool
It was
story.
conf-
Subscribe at
Number one
Night
of
God 33.3 for the rest of it.
is entertain yourself, and you are their self. There is nothing else. Do you
What?
think it's just a coincidence that The Simpsons can predict everything?
They don't predict
You think they
everything,
could,
but
like,
just a
tell
lot of
the
it.
future or something? Nope. Everything is planned years in advance. Years and years. If they didn't do any of this, nothing here would happen. Nothing would ever happen. We would be so bored. There has to be structure. I have to create structure. If I don't create structure, everything collapses. I wanted to tell you all this just to actually, I'm the only one that exists.
He definitely cracked out.
Well, it goes back to the destiny thing. I made a bargain with it, a long time ago, and I'm holding up my end.
What was your bargain?
To get where I am now.
Should I ask who you made the bargain with?
with the chief commander.
On this earth?
And this earth, and then in the world we can't see.
Bob Dylan told 60 Minutes and other national TV programs that he was given magical enlightenment by the devil himself to be able to come up with the rhymes and the music that he developed. And all of it when he went to the crossroads in the South, where his idol admitted that he himself had sold his soul to the devil.
That's when I went to the crossroads and made a big deal.
Yeah.
This tree is 2,000.
Yeah. All right. That's about all I can handle of the TikTok right now. Sometimes it's really, really good. Sometimes it's Today was a little You had some good info. You had some Christian malarkey in there. You had had a cracked out Mason. Those are always fun, claiming to be. There's absolutely no evidence of that, of course. So for those of you who think that, Skylar's just out there, he believes in the flat earth, he'll believe in anything, it's just one of those conspiracy tards. Not the case. It's actually not the case. I think that things should be given with a fair level of evidence. And the thing that a lot of people don't understand is that the flat earth has the evidence and a lot of other stuff does not. So astral projection is a little bit weird, though. That's one of those things that you kind of have to prove to yourself. It is very anecdotal, but I think that's a message. I think that's a metaphor. I think everything that exists here is a big old metaphor to teach us. And I think that the astral projection, it being something to prove to yourself, is kind of like one of those ultimate tests for this world, so that's why it is the way that it is. Of course, it's just my opinion. I appreciate everybody stopping by. I know it's been a little bit of a long one today. We went over a whole bunch of different stuff. Please, if you haven't had a chance already, please like and subscribe. We're trying to grow the channel as quickly as possible, especially over on the TikTok. If you guys have a TikTok, please go over and subscribe or follow over at the Troubling_Tribune, because we have to grow that thing to 1,000. And that way we can go ahead and live debate people and start smacking them with the truth. So I'm looking forward to that. In the meantime, I hope everybody has a good one. Please leave a comment. Leave a comment down below and go to truthsmacks.com. Get your delicious bag of Truth Smacks today. They are delicious. They are nutritious. The food is garbage for the most part. Processed foods, and even a lot of the organic stuff isn't even really predominantly organic. So definitely got to do your research on that. Luckily, this is a great company that really cares about the truth, cares about health, and that's why they make the product as such. So go check them out. Go check out their resources. And until next time, see ya.